You're listening to The Money Hour with your host, Tina Mitchell, on Alternative Talk 1150 AM. Now, back to the show with local mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell.
You are listening to the Money Hour on 1150 AM KKNW, the Saturday, April 16th show. You can also listen to my show podcast, Facebook premiere, or my show on the show YouTube channel. In addition, for more information on any of my upcoming events, you can go to tinamitchellevents.com. I am your host and local mortgage expert, Tina Mitchell. I'm here to help you build a strong financial blueprint 1 week and 1 show at a time. If you are hearing my show at a different time or day, you are listening to a rebroadcast. I'm here to answer any questions or connect you with the guests that I have on the show today. Please call the show at 1-855-400-1150. Again, that's 1-855-400-1150, or you can go online to themoneyhour.com. And now back in virtual studio, Eunicia Peret of the Empowered Financial Planner. Fractional investments is what we're talking about right here on 1150 AM KKNW. So Eunicia, let's go ahead and start out with why don't business owners know more about where their money is going or how they can use it to achieve what they want when it comes to keeping more of what they earn? Why are not more business owners in tune to that?
There are a few different things, Tina, that come to mind. I would say that one of the big reasons why they're not in tune is because oftentimes as business owners, individuals are busy. They have so much writing on their plates every day. There's so much going on with the business. And oftentimes the last thing that they want to do is to sit down to try to understand what potentially could they be missing out on when it comes to financial planning, when it comes to wealth optimization, when it comes to tax minimalization. And so because each and every one of those topics can be so overwhelming, oftentimes it's easier to just put it off. And so when we put things off, one of the big things that happens is that and money ends up being left on the table. So we won't call it procrastination, but don't put things off. Don't procrastinate. We will call it afterwards. Don't push things off to tomorrow, to next month, to the next year, because what happens when you do that, it's not a pretty story. One of the other reasons why individuals don't really understand what's happening with their finances is because historically, they perhaps did not have a solid financial team to work with. They might have a CPA, they might even work with a financial planner or both. They might have a tax person possibly, or a bookkeeper or an attorney or all of the above. But what we are seeing with just about everybody that comes across and becomes a client is that in most cases, those individuals, even if they have the siloed relationships, those relationships never really come together to where they foster conversations that ultimately end up putting more money back into the client's pocket. And so a big part of what we do is a lot of my clients will tell you we are great at herding cats. We literally focus on making sure that our clients' financial teams talk together. They talk so that our clients ultimately have the benefit and can experience the benefit of how do we truly minimize taxes when it comes to figuring out where money is leaking out? How do we optimize the way that wealth is being built by not leaving money to chance? And then last but not least, how do we really focus on those streams of income and maximizing those streams of income? Because if we are able to put all of those pieces of that beautiful puzzle together, we end up seeing more results and more financial impact, bigger financial impact to our bottom line.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that today because it's so surprising. You have all of these experts in these different spaces, which you need, and they're not communicating, which can be devastating to your financial outcome. Again, we're going to talk more about that. But so what's happening when a client's team is not actively working together towards their client's goal? So what kind of disaster could that be?
Well, if we were to think, let's think from a taxes perspective, just for a
Mhm.
moment. Oftentimes, and I'll preface that by saying, oftentimes people will ask us, new clients or prospects will ask us, well, why are we talking about taxes? Well, because most people don't want to either talk about taxes, or that's an area that's not really openly being discussed. What
Mhm.
we're seeing is that, in especially, and I don't want to single out in high income earners, because this can happen at all levels of income. But generally, what we're seeing is that individuals can leave as much as 30 to 50% more in taxes than perhaps they're paying more that much more in taxes than perhaps they should or they could. Why? There are a lot of different reasons, but one of the big ones is that people don't really understand that the tax code was not written for the W-2 employee, and it
Exactly.
was not written to just file taxes. The tax code was written in such a way where due diligence and planning is critical, but that due diligence and that planning doesn't happen. I would say that 99.99% of individuals that we see, even if they have this idea of we're doing tax planning, that tax planning is more of a revision of what was done last year versus how can we truly optimize and use the tax code to our advantage. And when I say taxes, I want everybody to understand I am not a proponent of tax evasion, not at all. That's very different from minimizing our tax exposure. And so when it comes to taxes, that's one area. The other big part, the other big component from a financial team standpoint, is how money gets invested. And now we're talking about your financial team in terms of financial advisor, in terms of your insurance individuals, in terms of every mortgage brokers, bankers. How do we bring all that together? You're a specialist in mortgages. I can't tell you how many times we work with clients that did not know that by simply knowing the tips and the tricks of refinancing a mortgage, that they could free up cash, that they could focus more on their wealth creation efforts, that they could really truly add to their bottom line. And so that's one sliver of what we're looking at in terms of how does that financial team come together. And then last but not least, when it comes to the financial team, oftentimes the financial services industry is not focused on how do we maximize income in our future years, in our retirement years. Everybody's just focused on the today and now because that's where money's being made. Well, that's wonderful. But when you're looking at someone that's 50, 60 years old, 70 years old, and that planning was never really done with the lens and through the lens of focusing on those beautiful retirement years, or for most people, the years when we want to no longer work for money, we want the money to service us, not having the right individuals and the right people on that bus, right, on their financial bus, talking to each other. Again, you can see even here so many different points of disconnect that oftentimes happen, and they happen unfortunately every single day. And
Yeah.
clients and people don't really realize. And what's worse is they don't know how to corral all of that knowledge so that it benefits them.
Yeah, you need to plan for today, you need to plan for tomorrow, and you need to plan for your future. And if somebody were to ask you right now, will you continue working where you're working and know you're never going to get an increase in pay, you would absolutely say no. Well, people are setting themselves up that when they get into retirement, they're not going to ever receive an increase in pay. So you have to understand, just as Nisha is saying here, is how do we make sure that your income, you're going to have the income's is going to be increasing based on to keep up with inflation and everything that's happening. So absolutely. And you'd mentioned the mortgage, which is important because this is just one example in what your mortgage options are. Not having to come in with a large down payment, instead of leaving it in your investments that are going to compound and have a stronger growth over time than having it stuck in your real estate. So again, that's an example of what Eunicia is saying, is you need both experts, the mortgage and the financial advisor, or the CPA and the financial planner. So Eunicia, why are financial teams not strategically at the highest level coming together and working as a team?
That's a great question. I would say that one of the main reasons is the way that the industries, it's really multiple industries can bubble together, right? Conjoined, that need to be conjoined together, that aren't really communicating with each other. There's no incentive for a mortgage broker or a banker to be talking to a financial advisor that's sitting outside of that specific bank's walls, right? Or likewise, to be talking to a CPA or perhaps a bookkeeper or whoever prepares the taxes, because there are no incentives there. Yes, there are specific tangential alignments, right, that should happen between your tax preparer and possibly your mortgage broker, but do those really happen? And do those strategic planning discussions actually take place? Let's look at an example. A business owner, right? As business owners, because of deductions and everything else that happens, how many times, Tina, did you see taxes coming across done haphazardly in such a way where the client is looking at, maybe I'm going to be able to buy next year, or maybe we need to have a 2-year plan? Well, what if those discussions were happening earlier on? What would the results be? And the results are, you're going to see a huge reduction in your taxes. You're going to see a huge optimization in terms of your cost, and a huge opportunity to really take the money that you are working for and take the results of it growing to the next level.
Yes. Yeah. So, Eunicia, what is the top 3 things that business owners should do to overcome lost time?
Well, first and foremost, they really need to focus on taking that step and asking a lot of questions. And oftentimes people will say, well, where do I start with the questions? And my guidance is, start whatever questions that come to mind, ask them. Number one, if you don't have someone to ask them of, jot them down, make sure that they're documented, so that when you do have the right individuals, or you know that, okay, I'm talking to an individual that I can ask good questions of, feel free to, you're going to have them, and then you can be more prepared. The second part is, start thinking about who is sitting on your team. Are those people, do you see the individuals that you're working with bringing you fresh ideas every single year to say, hey, we could be doing a little bit better here, we could be doing a little bit better there, we could minimize your risk here, or up your growth over there? What are the fresh ideas that you're getting? If you're not getting those fresh ideas, start asking yourself the question of, who should be changed out, and how do we need to get that team working together? And then the other thing that I would say is, don't shy away from paying money in order to go fast. Dean Graziosi, one of our mentors, has always said, it takes money to go fast. You have to pay to go fast. And oftentimes, one of the things that I see, especially with business owners, is we're looking at a small quadrant, we're looking at that little bit or a lot of the money that's coming in, and we're always so focused on just the cash flow that oftentimes we're paralyzing the business, and we're paralyzing our financial growth, because we don't want to invest in ourselves, we don't want to invest in our businesses, and more importantly, we don't want to invest in those strategic partners that can actually make all the difference when it comes to our money.
Yeah, great advice. So what are the implications associated with business owners trusting someone else to singly handle and manage their wealth, oftentimes without any input from them as a business owner?
Oftentimes it can be as much as hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. And we have cases over cases because of the pool of and the type of clients that we work with, where we might see in one specific transaction a potential loss of accumulation in tune of $700, $800, $900,000 over a period of X number of years. And that's in one instance, that's one case, that's one example for one client. That's without taxes added on top of it. That's without optimizing our future income. And so when you start looking at everything all out, it could be very, very impactful. It could make the difference between being super, super comfortable in retirement and scraping the bottom and trying to keep up with inflation.
Yeah, big difference. So what are some immediate steps business owners can take to have a sense of power over how they grow their wealth?
One of the big things that we see as individuals are unsure of what exactly is happening with their money to begin with. And that was actually one of your first questions. So one of the easiest ways to just start the exercise of starting to get a handle of what is happening in their financial house is start documenting, where is your money and how is it servicing you? And that's where I would invite our listeners, if they want to connect with us, we would be more than happy to help them think through what are some of those specifics to their situation where they can go more in depth. But start documenting your accounts and start asking for each one of those accounts and for each one of the areas where money is sitting in for you. How is that money supposed to be serving you? How is it serving you? And how do you want it to serve you down the road? And then once you have that, you'll have the sense of, okay, I'm probably not doing as bad as I thought I was.
Yeah. Eunicia, thank you so much for coming in. It was really great to have a conversation with you and to share the obvious wealth that you have with my listeners, and look forward to having you come back in studio, hopefully in the future.
It was my pleasure, Tina. I look forward to that as well.